Hey everybody, it's Karen Anderson here with Aortic Hope, and this is our weekend review. And before we get started, as we do every single week, we're going to ask you to click like and to click the little alarm bell so that you're notified of all of these future events, whether they're educational and informative like this, or just a bunch of crazy, get in trouble fun. So right now we have Tammy with us today.
Hello.
Thank you. Hopefully, we'll have a couple more surprise guests jumping in as we work through their technical difficulties. But we're really excited to bring you this weekend review. This is for all of you individuals that are not part of Facebook, maybe don't have time to check us out on our website and read all of our daily posts. So we just bring it all to you here in one big week and gives us a chance to banter and talk. So feel free to leave us a comment. Tell us your thoughts, ask us questions. We'll acknowledge you live while we're here on the air. And if you see us after, just leave us a comment and we'll write you back. So just going to jump right in. Even though I feel like I had to roll over here, I'm still eating candy from Passover, chocolate covered marshmallows. It just never seemed to leave my house. But we'll get to all of that good stuff in a minute. So let's start off with Monday. It was Medical Monday, and this was really interesting. So we're gonna go through this graphic here a little bit. Talks all about like where your pulmonary valve is and your pulmonary arteries, and there's a specific reason why this graph goes through that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But there was a recent episode on Grey's Anatomy. I don't know how many of you are still watching the show. I am just an addict. I've been watching it since day one. But they actually mentioned a different way of doing an aortic valve replacement, and they called it the Ross procedure. So I'm thinking, what character was named Ross? Because on this show, they name all kinds of things after their characters. But it turns out that the Ross procedure is actually a real thing. So I found it on their website, and here's some information from that website. So the Ross procedure is a surgical technique that uses your own healthy pulmonary valve. It's called a pulmonary autograft, which is actually a mirror image of a normal aortic valve. I had no idea about any of this, but they use your pulmonary valve to replace your damaged aortic valve, and actually a donated human pulmonary valve replaces your pulmonary valve. So let's think about that again real quick. So you receive a donated human pulmonary valve, and your own pulmonary valve actually replaces the aortic valve. So to me, it seems like there's a lot of steps in that, which is more than just going in and deploying a mechanical or a pig valve. But I guess what's kind of cool is it's human tissue to human tissue. And I did pull up the article so we could talk about this a little bit. But the Ross procedure basically, so there's a lot of reasons for using this. Let me see, I think I went down maybe a little bit too far here. The advantages of using the Ross procedure, now that we've already spoken about what it actually is. So it's the only surgical technique that's out there that replaces the aortic valve with a living. Yep, here we go. It's that week with those words again. I should just learn how to say these words. Autologous, autologous tissue, human, probably means human tissue, resulting in the advantages that we will go over below. But it's the only operation that's actually been consistently shown to restore long-term life expectancy compared to the general ways that they're doing valve replacements right now. But here's one of the most important ones. If you take your pulmonary valve, you don't need any blood thinners or anticoagulation medications. So that's huge. And I think we've got one of our surprise guests joining us right now. Let's see. We do. We have Mike Sylvester
I am back.
from Minnesota.
Yep, right on Lake Superior.
Right on Lake Superior, getting their little blizzard right now, 5 inches. We have jumped in. We are talking about Medical Monday. And just to backtrack, I don't know if you saw this, Mike, there was a recent episode on Grey's Anatomy where they talked about something called a Ross procedure. And as I was telling Tammy, I just thought that it was something made up, but it turns out that the Ross procedure is a way in which they take your pulmonary valve and use that to replace your aortic valve. And then they give you a human donated pulmonary valve to replace your pulmonary valve. So interesting, you get a donated human pulmonary valve. They take your pulmonary valve and move it to your aortic valve.
Wow, I did not see that. Amazing.
And I really didn't think it was real, but what we're just getting to now is the benefits of it. And number one is no lifelong anticoagulants, so no more blood thinners. You don't have to be on that. The other thing is, let's see, it says excellent performance of blood flow during rest and exercise. We've got, it's the only operation that is shown to restore life expectancy similar to that of the general population. You will receive a quality of life that is very similar to those who never even had aortic valve treatment before. So this is interesting. And so neither of you have heard of this? Is that my
I have not
understanding?
heard of that at all. Interesting.
Okay. So yeah, so if you take a look at, we've got a little bit of picture up here of what they're doing here. So yeah, they basically are taking your pulmonary valve out, replacing it with a donated valve, and using your part of your pulmonary valve as the aortic valve. So it's human tissue to human tissue. Isn't that amazing?
That is amazing.
It's incredible. It is
And
incredible.
do you guys have artificial aortic valves?
I do not. Mine was resuspended.
That was what happened to me too. Mine was physically reshaped and suspended. So
Okay.
Mine, my first one, but my first dissection, my first open heart surgery for the dissection, they thought they were going to replace the valve, but they said as soon as they repaired the dissection, my valve started working. And then 2 years later, I just had a valve replacement with a tissue valve. But this gives me hope that if I ever have to have it replaced again, there are some other options.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Isn't that interesting?
It is.
And the only reason we did a post about it was because I saw it on Grey's Anatomy, but you know, everything's named after Meredith Grey and Derek Shepherd. So I was like, which character is Dr. Ross? I had no idea, but yeah, pretty interesting post for our Medical Monday. Just something different. So we're going to go on to our topic Tuesday, and let's talk about this. This actually comes from Essentia Health, your hospital, your big hospital up there. But Essentia Health's article that they posted recently reminds people to check in on their health. And that's because as warming temperatures, unlike what's going on in Minnesota, as warming temperatures encourage more time outdoors and a return for busier lifestyles, it's important to get a checkup. In this community, we're all constantly scanned. We're getting scans, we're getting echoes, and maybe even some blood work. But there's also many other preventative tests that we should be scheduling. And having come off of 2 years of COVID, where so many doctors put us at bay and said, do a telemed appointment, we need to talk about this because successful outcomes are more likely when conditions are detected early. As we know this, Mike and I were just talking about this earlier today, but annual checkups for adults, we all know that includes blood pressure, it includes diabetes, it includes cholesterol, cancer screenings like mammograms, colonoscopies, PSAs for prostate exams or prostate cancer, the management of chronic conditions, so male and female specific concerns, family planning, birth control, and we would also like to add that wasn't in the article, skin cancer screenings are very important as well. So spring into action, schedule any appropriate preventive, I always add a ta-ta-ta in there, preventive care appointments that make sense for you. And we've got the article right here. And you know, what it is you need to check in. You need to check in on your own health. So let's talk a little bit about how long has it been for either of you to have had your typical physical with your GP? Or do you even have them anymore?
I get mine every year. Yeah, I get mine every year in February where I have my blood work done and meet with my general practitioner. And that was what got me into with my medical issues in the first place is I never went to the doctor because I always felt I got enough exercise working at the post office that nothing was ever going to happen to me. So I would be the first to advocate and telling people, please go see your general practitioner every year. So I get my annual checkup in February, and then I get my CT scan in August of every year. So those are my big 2 times that I kind of don't look forward to and just hope that everything comes back green light. So
I hear you.
I do have to get my colonoscopy now, my first one. So that was brought up at my last meeting in February. So I have to schedule that.
Oh, joy, fun times.
Yeah, yep. They said it's that time. You're getting up there in age, so you need to go in.
And Tammy, how are you? Where are you abouts in all of your tests and checkups?
I do have a primary care person, but she doesn't know a whole lot about aortic dissection, and I feel like she looks things up on her phone a lot while I'm there. But she did. She does follow me for, like he just said, the colonoscopy, and we decided last time, because I was on Plavix, not to do the colonoscopy, and I did the one where you mail in a sample or whatever. And so we had that discussion. I rely mainly on my cardiologist for my medications and my endocrinologist to follow me for most of the traditional annual reviews and things like that. It's just how it works in my world.
I think if I think about it, well, I just got a new GP. Before this, ever since the dissection, I never utilized the GP. And when I met this new person, she said to me, consider me we have another guest that's joining us. Very exciting. Hey, Martha, we are in the midst of talking about the importance of checking in and doing your regular checkups now that we're coming out of COVID, and just not to let our community only go by scans and echoes. And so we were just talking about, and I was mentioning, my GP looks at herself as the spine of a book, and all my specialists are the pages. So when I interviewed her, which felt a little odd, she said, my role is to be the keeper of all the information, and I'll review things because I might find things that somebody else might miss. Because if they pick up something on a scan that's not cardiac related, a cardiologist might not call you to be like, hey, I saw a little something on your liver. You hope that they will, but they might not, right? So that's your GP's role. And if I had to think about it, you got to have your female wellness exam, your mammogram, your colonoscopy, your cleanings, which are twice a year, your eye exams. We have a scan that happens maybe twice a year, but at least definitely once. I go to the dermatologist at least twice a year. I mean, you're spending like once a month, if you spread them out, seeing a doctor. Isn't that amazing? It's just amazing. But it's important. So I'm going to ask you, Martha, as I asked everybody else, where are you are you still playing catch up on the doctor's appointments that you really need to do since COVID?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, great. Had CT scan in December, which had been delayed by a couple of years or because of COVID and so forth. But as you said, the GP, the family physician, is kind of the gatekeeper, the organizer, the referee, and I am. There's a delay in the. I'm hearing myself.
You sound fine. You sound fine to us.
I'm just going to proceed then.
Okay.
And there's an aortic clinic that has just started up in Toronto. I'm based in Canada, Ontario, and I'm going to be going down there next week, and I'm really excited about that because that is going to be a way of making sure that the testing for anything that's aortic related is going to be done. But all of the other tests that we used to just do as a matter of fact have really declined in priority, and I have to bring those back. I have to, and this is a good reminder that there are other parts of your body. I mean, it's important to take care of yourself as a whole.
Yeah.
So that's where I am right now.
I do know a lot of people who have missed colonoscopies because colonoscopies, mammographies, I mean, they all took a back seat, even just skin checks. And my sister unfortunately just went for a skin check. Well, she went for a skin check not too long ago, and they saw this little, I mean, the tiniest little, you wouldn't even noticed it on her nose. And she said, we're just going to keep our eye on that. And then it started bleeding on its own, like a little pimple, like she scratched it. And it's her third now basal cell, second on her nose that she's finding. And she's not even 50. So this is all of the, when we played at camp and your parents hope that the counselors put sunscreen on you.
Yeah,
This is all the damage we're having now. So it is really important. So everybody that's watching, whether you have a medical condition or not, coming out of COVID, it is critical for you to schedule these appointments. It's a pain. I get it. But Tammy, I think you one time said you got to make sure to schedule the days off. No doctor days. No doctor days are as important as doctor days, or you just get too overwhelmed, right? Oh, you muted yourself.
I'm sorry.
That's
There
okay.
I am.
Yeah.
Yes, I started feeling like it was really taking a toll on my mental health. And every day I was getting up and getting ready to go to some doctor's appointment. And sometimes it was a 15-minute drive, and sometimes it was, you had to plan an hour to get there. And it really took a toll on me. So as my appointments have dwindled down, I have tried to take the last week of the month of either no doctor's appointments that week. And now my new strategy is try to schedule them all in 1 week. And sometimes if I'm trying to work with a doctor and schedule and they give me a date and it's not during that week, I just say, oh, that doesn't work for me. I can do this week. And then if it works, it works. If not, then I start giving in. But I've kind of pushed back a little bit of what I need. So
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Topic Tuesday. We're breezing through. And this was an easy week because we had holidays. So there was only so much we got a chance to post because, as you know, we have our Wacky Wednesday contest. So this is a really interesting topic that we put up for Thursday. It was Therapeutic Thursday. And in Healthline, Ayana Dank writes in the article titled "The 5 Stages of Grief That Come with a New Medical Diagnosis." So this is different because we all know grief that comes with the loss of someone, but we never really talked about grief that comes with a medical diagnosis. So the type of grief that comes with complex illness is very complex. Grief is an experience that can completely consume you mentally, physically, and emotionally, and it doesn't just happen with the traditional sense of loss. In fact, going through the stages of grief can happen as a result of any major life change, which I'm not sure that all of us realize. That you change a job, you're going to go through stages of grief, especially if you're laid off or you're fired. So for many disabled and chronically ill people, grieving your health after a new medical diagnosis can be an unexpected challenge. And the type of grief that comes with chronic illness is very complex, and the cycle can often restart each time a new issue presents itself. Oh boy, if I knew about this, each new issue that presented itself, right? So here we're going to take a look at the 5 stages of grief according to Swiss-American psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but through our relationships to our own bodies and what it means to mourn ourselves. So let's take a look at these real quick. And so again, these are the 5 stages that come with a medical condition. So don't mind me as I'm reaching, like I'm ET stretching my neck. I'm trying to see my second screen here, but so okay, let's talk about this. We've got these 5 stages that are very familiar. Denial. So the art of rejecting reality, that is what denial. And that's usually the first stage of grief, because when a major life change occurs, the mind and body have to work to process the situation. So let's get into the denial factor. First of all, of the 3 of you, Martha, did you have a dissection, aortic dissection as well?
Yes, I had an emergency aortic dissection type A
Okay, so all
and
three of
stroke.
us, so all three of us had emergent situations. So our denial doesn't come with a diagnosis, except maybe Tammy and Mike, because you've had subsequent other situations. Let's get into denial. Let's talk about this a little bit. Martha, how can you relate to denial when it comes to a new medical situation?
Oh my goodness. Well, when I came home and that part of it had that chapter had finished, and I was trying to just accept what was going on, I would wake up each morning, and it was like 50 First Dates. Do you remember that movie? I would wake up in the morning and I would say, "Oh, everything's fine," and then I said, "Oh no," and I would remember what had happened. So denial wasn't really there in the beginning because it was just such a physical impact, and the change in my physical condition was so dramatic that there was no way. I found denial kind of factored in further on when I was saying, okay, I'm walking, now I can run. Well, no. No. And I'll get on the bike and I'll just go. No, that's not happening. So that it was coming up against all of these walls and beginning by saying, I can do this, and then saying, yeah.
Right.
So it was just step by step and saying, okay, this is what it is, and I'm still figuring that out. So denial is there, and I think to some degree it helps in a strange way, because otherwise I wouldn't be trying to do something.
That's a good, that falls into the flip the script, change the narrative. So that is
Yeah,
interesting that you say that. That's
yeah.
interesting. Mike,
However,
oh, sorry, go
there's
ahead,
reality.
continue.
Sorry.
Yep, there is reality, right? And
Yeah.
we're going to probably get into that with the other four stages. But Mike, talk to me a little bit about denial in your case, in your situation.
Yeah, it's funny you bring this up because I remember in psych therapy, that was after my 5th heart surgery, and I had a massive stroke that rendered most of the brain on my right side useless, and I woke up blind and paralyzed and unable to speak. And I still have that squeezy ball you sent me, by the way, Karen. I'm going to bring that on here one of these times. But my grief was more just learning to adapt my life. And I remember when the psych therapist brought up grief, and I said, well, nobody died, I'm still here. And he said, no, you're going to be grieving the old you, because the old you is gone and it's not ever coming back. And I had already gone through a heart attack and the type A dissection and open heart surgery, and then had a descending aneurysm that had to be fixed, and they put a huge artificial endograft in, and I had to be placed into hypothermic circulatory arrest for the second time, and that's when I had the stroke. And my life changed a lot, and I have had an amazing recovery and gone back to work at the post office. But the grief was just getting over the fact that my life was changed forever. And I had some minor personality changes, and my one issue that I really deal with is I can tend to get frustrated over minor things sometimes. And my wife and family have learned to deal with that. And it's nothing too major, but that's been the biggest thing for me. The grief has been accepting that my life has changed, and I've gotten to that point now and know that it has, and just have to accept that. And a lot of it helped. I had been a hockey player in juniors in college, so I was used to, facing a lot of adversity and being challenged and having to work hard to do things. But yeah, when you're in a wheelchair and you have to figure out how to tie your shoes or walk again, it can be very challenging psychologically. I would get frustrated because I wanted to say, you know what, I'm going to work as hard as I can, but I want to be better immediately. And it doesn't work that way. It takes time. So me, it was just learning to cope and adapt. I wasn't really in denial because I had done a lot of research on strokes and dissections and things, but it was just learning to cope and adapt.
Yep, I hear you. Tammy?
Well, I feel like I've been through the grief process 3 times health-wise, and the first time and the third time were my aortic. I had open heart surgery. No, I need to back up. Pump head there. My first time going through the grief process, I almost felt like I was watching myself from another place, from outside my body. But when I went through breast cancer, and then 12 weeks into chemo for the breast cancer is when I had my aortic dissection. That grief process did not go well. I definitely got stuck in the denial and found out later on that I actually disassociated. And when you get stuck in a cycle, the grief process is perfectly normal and healthy and serves a purpose. But when you get stuck in one place, like the denial, then you can't move through the other ones. And it wasn't until I went to get help that I was able to move through the process. Then the third time, a year ago, when I had my second open heart surgery for the valve replacement, again, I each stage, I wouldn't recognize it at first, but then when I would be pleading or bargaining, I would be like, okay, I know what's happening. Let's just get on to the next thing. So I think it's fine as long as you don't get stuck, and the ability to recognize if you're stuck.
Mm-hmm. So it says here, even though you know logically that you're entering a new relationship with your health when a new medical issue comes up, or if you get a new diagnosis, it's common to need time to work through denial before beginning to process exactly what you're feeling. And I think for me, my biggest struggle has been, well, the first time for me was when I had Crohn's disease. I went through so many years of my life. I mean, 13 years of my life at the time, before I went to my first support group meeting, and I heard that Crohn's was classified as a disability. And I was like, I was in total denial of that completely. And I think I was initially in denial when I was diagnosed with high blood pressure after I had my son. I had preeclampsia. And that's because I'm like, no, I don't. And I never took my meds the right way. Hence, I had an unknown aneurysm and ended up having a dissection. But similar to what you've all said, and to some degree, I think that I just I assumed I'd be going back to work. And I just assumed I could do a load of laundry. And I just assume, and I always assume. And then I'm like, no, yes, I can do. My husband says, don't do too much. And I'm in denial. I'm like, what are you talking? Of course I can do it, until my body gets beaten down. And so I think probably all of us to some degree have this air of I can do it, because you feel it in here. And then your body goes to do it, and because you're in denial and you realize you can't. You have to accept that there's been some changes. So I think that it's I think the worst and scariest things of denial is when you reject any pain you feel or any symptoms. You start hiding things from your loved ones. You push through your health issue as if everything is okay, and you start doubting yourself and the validity of your concerns. And I don't know anybody in this community who hasn't experienced that. And the fear of living in denial because you don't want to go to the ER, living in denial that you don't feel good, you don't want to tell anybody because you're scared that you're going to be back in this emergent situation again. Denial is not our friend. It's not our friend in this process. It's not our friend. So we should just deny denial. How's that? That sounds so, I'm being a great therapist there. Okay. Number 2, anger. You're going to be angry at yourself. You could end up angry at doctors. You can end up angry at the world. But when anger is burning through you, it means you have most likely come to understand the reality of your situation. So we're no longer in denial, because now you're just pissed that you have a limitation or you have a chronic condition, and now you have something that you have to get needles for and take pills for. It makes you angry. And it seems a lot more manageable sometimes to lash out at others when you're grieving for yourself. So does anybody want to touch upon any anger that you've felt in dealing with your AD? Mike, you want to take this one first?
Yeah, we had talked a little bit earlier about this, and I was, after my original dissection and heart attack, was frustrated, and I was in the doing physical therapy. I was in a big rehabilitation center and going through the whole why me thing, and this is awful, terrible. Nobody can have it worse than me. And I'm watching as people are coming in. There was a woman who had been in a motorcycle accident that was getting fed by a spoon from her family, and then a guy who was in a snowmobile accident that broke both his legs and arms, and people that had all these other horrible things. And I thought, maybe what I have isn't so bad, and maybe it isn't, I'm not the most unlucky person in the whole world. So I came to accept my condition and just said, all I can do is work as hard as possible to try to get myself better and to adapt to my new life. So that really helped me, just kind of looking around and seeing what other people were going through and realizing that I wasn't the most unlucky person in the world. And maybe in a way I was lucky, because I could have easily died a number of different times. I mean, I've been twice on hypothermic circulatory arrest, so I have been dead twice. And here I am and have made a recovery. So that really helped me. But it's hard not to get, I wasn't so much angry as just very, very frustrated, because I wanted to get better and I wanted to get better immediately. But it takes time, and it's still a day by day process for me.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Tammy?
The thing that I related to when I read this part of the article was, as a special education teacher, I watched over the years many, many families go through the grief cycle. And when they would get into the anger cycle, if I was part of the diagnosis that their child received, sometimes they would ask for a new teacher. They would feel anger towards me. And I never felt bad about that. It was like, I understood it. And I really understand it now when I see in our community, sometimes people will tell me that they feel like they're doctor shopping, that they feel like they need another doctor. And I tell them, if you feel anger towards your doctor, if you don't feel trust, if you're in that stage, that's fine. Do what you need to do. But I think it does happen in our community sometimes that the doctor or the team that you were working with that gave you all this bad news, you just need to move on to a new team sometimes. And it's fine. It's what you need.
Mm-hmm. Martha?
It's interesting listening to Mike and Tammy. Mike, I am so much more aware of what other people are struggling with, because I think, oh yeah, that's really, really difficult, really challenging. And frustration. I think that the anger is all mixed up with frustration.
But they do overlap. It's not like it ends one day and the next one starts. It's a process.
Yes, yeah. And I was a special education resource teacher as well.
So you know what I mean about the parents. They
absolutely.
When you give them a diagnosis, sometimes they don't want to see you anymore. You gave them the worst news in the world.
That's right. And
personally.
No. And you soon learn that. And that's part of teaching as well, that you just can't. And part of my anger, sometimes I feel that all these medications that I have to take, all these pills, and for pain and for heart regulation and cholesterol control and so forth, sometimes I just don't want to take them. I just want to take the whole pill organizer that has 8 different colors in it in each slot, and just throw it out the window and say, I don't need it. And I'm so angry because I went from taking maybe one medication to all of these. And I think, this isn't me. I don't recognize me in all of this. And I'm just angry that it happened. And that, I find that tough.
Well, it's been 7 years for me, and I'm just always angry about it. I hide it really well. But in my case, I was going in for a bowel resection at a very well-known hospital, very well-known. And so that's another thing, is people get very hung up on names of hospitals, but it's just like education and going to college. People want to go to a certain named school, not realizing that the teachers there could have gone to your local university. So a doctor, it doesn't matter. It's about the doctor, not the name of the institution sometimes. And for me, I went to this well-known institution and they did an echo and they saw I had an enlarged aorta, and they never said anything to me. And the general practitioner never said anything to me. And I did not know any of this until I went back through my medical records because I didn't understand where this aneurysm came from. But in 2012, it was okay, it was only 3.9, but I had hypertension. I was on medication. Nobody told me the importance of taking that medication same time every day. So fast forward through 10Ks, and I was a dancer. Sorry, there's my dog saying hi to the UPS guy. I was a dancer. I overexerted myself, and then didn't take the medication till 4 p.m. So when I dissected, I was at 4.6, and I'm just so angry because if I had known, maybe I could have been scanned. But the ifs, or what did our therapist Carl Grody, who was part of one of our support group meetings recently, said, what is it? Don't should have yourself all the time. Stop shitting on yourself. That's what it is. Don't shit on yourself all the time. And I'm like, excuse me, what did you just say? But the should haves, the could haves, the what ifs, they don't serve any purposes. And I think it does help us move through anger a little bit more because look, at the end of the day, this is just what it is. And so the more angry I get, the more inflamed my blood pressure is going to be. And then that really doesn't serve you any good. So, okay, we're going to move on to the next one. And we are into depression, which I am sure that everybody's had some moments of experiencing, especially because when you have open heart surgery, and I don't know why it really is this surgery, a lot of people come out of it with the blues. So it can be just a general depression or sadness, but they say that a lot of people just tend to cry at puppy commercials or whatever the case may be. But I think our depression that goes along with grief is a little bit different, and it gets muddled, as it says here. And depression can actually make your pain that you're feeling from surgery or your sadness or your anxiety, you can make all of these things actually feel worse. So Tammy, you're up. When you were, I'm trying to remember the order in which everybody goes to give everybody a chance to go first. So depression, do you feel you experienced it, and how would you define it for yourself?
For me, depression was, I just kept saying, I want my old life back, and I had to give up so many things. But I think what compounded the depression was the medication that we have to take, the issue of pump head, not being able to think clearly and not being able to make decisions, not being able to remember clearly. But compounding all of that, I felt so much guilt for my family, because my family's life changed. My mom took on the role of driving me everywhere and being at all my doctor's appointments. And then my husband would come according to what was happening. And he was trying to keep his job but still support me. My sister, her life changed because she became my physical caretaker a lot. I wouldn't let my husband bathe me. So she stepped in and fulfilled some roles. And all of that made me feel terrible about how much their life changed. And then my two grown daughters, I feel like I just kept trying to protect them. They had just been through breast cancer with me, and one of them tested positive for the same gene I have. So I'm thinking, what have I done to my family? Which keeps it rolling. Luckily, nobody in my family makes me feel that way. I do it to myself. They never make comments that make me feel that way. So I found that getting professional help helped me move through that and come up with, what do I say to myself when I start feeling this way? Would my family want it any other way? Would I do it for my family? Yes. So then I have that conversation with myself and I move on. And I can't talk about it anymore or I'll start crying and blubbering. So go to the next person.
All right, Martha, you're up.
Yeah, I that really resonates with me. What you just said, Tammy, is the weight. I feel that what I have experienced and experiencing, um, how that affects other people, my family, and so on. And I'm in the middle of major depression and PTSD and all of that, and I'm right in the middle of it, and looking at pretty major treatment for it. It's very real, and it is something that I have a lot of. I have several. I have different people that are in the healthcare community that are supporting me, but there are times when I feel like
it's always right there.
It's always right there, and there are good days, and then there are really bad days, and I just kind of hold on to the thought that there's going to be a good day. So yeah, it's very, very real.
Mike?
Yeah, my biggest issues with depression was almost like a financial depression, because I was 46 when I had my heart attack and then dissection, and my wife and I both had good jobs and a nice house and nice vehicles, and I was convinced that I would be able to make somewhat of a recovery. But I work as a letter carrier at the post office, and I'm thinking, if I can't go back to work, what am I going to do? And initially they were saying I was going to have to go on disability, and I actually had a company, Med Data, working on filing my disability claim, and I thought, we're going to be financially ruined. And we had been saving up for retirement, and eventually I fortunately was able to go back full time. And now ever since COVID, we've been working 60, 70 hours a week, and everybody else is complaining. And I'm like, you know what? It's snowing out and I really don't care. I'm not even going to wear a hat or gloves because for everything that I'd been through. But it's the whole financial thing was terrifying, because if you can't pay your mortgage or pay any of your bills, and I had a lot of sick leave and vacation that I burned up, and we burned through all of our savings paying my medical bills. We actually went on a payment plan because we owed so much, and it took a few years to pay that off, but eventually we did get through it. But my biggest was just the financial concerns, and I still live with that a little bit because I don't have any issues now, but every year when I go in for that CT scan, I'm thinking one of two things happens. Either the nurse calls me and says everything's okay, or they say you're meeting with the surgeon tomorrow afternoon. And I just keep my fingers crossed. I'm on pins and needles waiting for that message to pop on the My Chart app from Essentia. And fortunately, it's been pretty good, but I live with that in the back of my head that at anytime you guys probably do, you feel a twinge or a little pain. I'm thinking, uh-oh, is my endograph ripping? Am I having another issue? So, and then I worry that what happens if I end up in the hospital now and we can't pay our bills. So for me, it was more of a financial depression than anything, but I'm pretty much over it.
I totally understand that. I think for me, I don't think I really experienced a lot of depression because I went right into PTSD. And my depression was more, I didn't like the way that I looked, and I was depressed that I was still newly married, and all these things have changed for us now. But I look at my depression was a very distinct short period of time, because quickly somebody had said to me, you cannot look at recovery in terms of days. You will never get through it, because what was happening is I'd wake up and every day, like you'd said, was like Groundhog Day. I was in pain. I was on the narcotic, which makes you, kook in your head. And I couldn't move around as much. And then it was, I'd wake up the next day. It's the same thing. And then I would just cry, like, is this it? Then I kind of started thinking, well, let me look. It's been like 3-4 weeks. Is this how I felt 4 weeks ago? And I noticed, no, it's not. So if you ever see that, it looks like a mountain and you got a person in the middle going up, and people will say, oh my God, I got so much further still to go. But if you just turn around and look down and you look and you see how far you've come, then wherever far you're going, that could be endless and infinite. So you can't worry about that. You should always just be excited about how far you've come. And you may slip, but you still, even if you go all the way back down, you can only then go back up. So I started adapting all these different ways of changing attitude for gratitude and flipping the script and all this stuff, and glass half full, half empty, screw it, just refill the glass, we'll drink it and then whatever, feel much better. And I because I think I realized that life is too short. So if I was going to have to end up in a wheelchair, at least I get to go to the concert still. I'm not going to miss anything because I'm in a wheelchair. I'm just seeing it differently. Ironically, the one thing that really depressed me the most is I couldn't go on rides. I couldn't go on roller coasters anymore. And it seems so stupid and frivolous and meaningless in the scheme of life, but I really liked roller coaster rides. And I probably would have eventually hated them as I got even older, but back then I really liked them. And it took it away. And I liked dancing. And I used to compete in ballroom, and I couldn't do any of the faster dances anymore, the Latin dances. I couldn't catch my breath. That was part of who I was. So I just, through treatment, through someone who specializes in PTSD and specializes in health related issues, really in I feel, relatively short period of time, I was able to work through a lot of that. Doesn't mean it doesn't rear its ugly head. So I go get a tune-up, because that's what you need to do. Or you go and you sit in on the support group meetings that we offer, and then you let other people tell you how they manage through it, right? And kind of like what Mike was saying, the first support group meeting I went to for Crohn's, and I heard some of their stories. Oh my gosh, I just shut down. I sat there and I thought, oh my Lord, listen what these people are going through. And then they asked me to tell my story, and they all sat there and they said, oh my goodness, look what you've been through. And so it's perspective. My story, which to me was bad for me, but in comparison in my mind was nothing, was huge for other people to listen to. To them, it was like, how do you function? I'm like, how do you function? And then I realized it just was bad for me. There is no scale. There is no anything. So it's a real deal though. But I do strongly suggest that if anybody out there is experiencing these sensations, in the least try to join a support group meeting, but definitely go seek out some therapy, because it really can work. And if you need to go through more than one, then go through more than one. Which leads us, we're almost done. And then I promise you, we're going to move on to such more lighthearted topics. Bargaining and negotiating. This is what we were talking about. The what ifs. What ifs are so bad. What if this goes wrong? What if my scan is bad? What if I would have taken my blood pressure pills on a regularly scheduled basis? What if I had gone to a specialist? What if they had told me I had an aneurysm? What if? That doesn't matter anymore. This is where I'm at today. So it's not the same as denial, in which you're trying to shut out reality. This stage is more bargaining, because you're thinking of all the different ways that this situation could have gone differently. And I am promising you, if you're spending time trying to think about all of this, it is going to make you feel a million times worse. A million times. Has any of you, have either any of you experienced this, and do you want to share that? Well, we're talking about denial and bargaining, or not denial, bargaining and negotiating.
Well, I realize how silly it sounds when I say to myself, if I just had not had chemotherapy, well, it saved my life. Like, you can't, like, there's some things that you just can't argue with. And I start going there, and it's like, okay, can't do that, Tammy. But yeah, and you realize, I still bargain. I would still beg my husband, I just want my life back. I just want my life back. And I think we do it with doctors too. I'm like, I know that if my doctor with my next scan tells me that I need to go back on blood pressure medicine, I'm going to have like a million reasons of what I can do differently before I have to go back on that medication. So I think you circle around, you come back, you use all the tactics just to get through. It's just a coping. So.
Mike, Martha?
Yeah, I always tell my wife I'm not a pessimist or an optimist, I'm a realist. So I came to terms with my mortality long ago, and the fact that what's going to happen is going to happen. And all I can do is make the best of my life, take my meds, go to my appointments and enjoy my life. So I guess
Yes.
I don't want to get stuck on the what if I had, gone on blood pressure meds when I should have, or gone and see my doctor. So in a way, it's kind of my own fault too. I don't really have anybody else to blame except for myself. So I just have to try to move on and live for the moment and enjoy my life and make the best I can of it.
Yeah, and I think that self-blame, I have looked back and I've said, well, I didn't do this and I didn't. So what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And I think that that's very human to say, what did I focus on? What I did wrong so that I can avoid this from happening again? What did I miss? And I think I'm getting past that, because it is what it is.
Doesn't matter
at this point. Yeah. And Mike, what you were saying about if it's this bargain, this idea that it could happen at any time, and that could be the last time. It's funny. There's this kind of acceptance that, okay, if that happens, then that happens. And it's strange to say that, because you think, I have trouble with the idea of bargaining and negotiating in order to avoid death. It's more.
Martha, this might make sense to you, but as a special education teacher, but when I did get stuck in that a little bit, I remember, now I was the infant and toddler, so I worked with babies that were at birth. And I would go in the home and I would take pages and pages of notes and ask a million questions about the mother's pregnancy, history and everything. So there was a child that had a brain bleed. It doesn't matter what happened before. It doesn't matter what, just go from here. And I stopped taking all those notes. It didn't matter, because what matters is what we do from here forward. And when I started thinking about applying that to myself, it helped me move through that a little bit. So I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it definitely does. That it's from here forward that you can't change what has happened.
And you're wasting a lot of energy on something and a lot of brain power on something that's not going to get you anywhere.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if I'm having a ping or a pang, you bet I am negotiating. I'm going in there saying, oh, please, please let it not be. I swear I'll take my medicine at 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. I promise I will. I will. And look, I have negotiated. I one time went to the hospital. I had started eating a lot of nuts when my prior marriage, he had type 2 diabetes. So I'm going to eat healthy. Okay, well, nuts are not good for people with Crohn's, but how bad could they be? And I blocked up my intestines. So I had to go to the hospital. I had to get an NG tube. They get the NG tube in and I say, okay, well, you got it in. Can we get it out now? Like, what can I do? I won't eat a nut again. Like, I'm not going to eat and you take the tube out. They're like, the tube's not coming out. I'm like, okay, it's like, okay, we'll leave it in for another hour, hour and a half, and then we'll take it out. You're going to be here for 6 days. It's staying in. I mean, I tried everything. It didn't matter. So finally, you just have to say, you know what? I'm just going to give myself up to science and just going to, hope you make me comfortable. And it is what it is. Just got to trust the process.
Yeah.
And I still eat nuts. So let's not even talk about that. Okay. Because it wasn't that bad,
And do you know how long those nasogastric tubes are? I do, because I pulled mine out after my open heart surgery. I got out of my restraints. I was tied down, and because of the opioids, I was, convinced they were sucking the life force out of me. And I got one arm loose and I pulled that thing out and threw it against the wall. And the nurse came flying in and shoved that thing right back in. That was not pleasant, but yeah.
Going in is worse than coming out. That's for sure.
I pulled that thing right out.
Yeah.
She was not happy.
And they serve a very important purpose, because the last thing in the world you want after surgery is to get sick. So yeah. All right. we're into acceptance. Take a deep breath. We're finally there. We've made it through these stages we're talking about. But acceptance is accepting your reality, accepting any pain, accepting that you're now different, that things have changed, that your relationship to your body is going to be different, accepting the way you look on the outside, which really, who cares? It's all about how is the inside behaving? How healthy is the inside? How healthy is the mind? Like, but if you had asked me in my 20s, I'd been like, oh yeah, no, my outside's very important. But now that I'm older, and you just realize, no, I don't care. If I lost a limb, I lost a limb. Outside, it's no consequence. But they say, research says that coming to terms with chronic pain or your situation can actually reduce the severity of the pain. So the sooner you come to terms with the pain, it reduces the severity. And I've said this a lot, that I have little pings and pangs, as Mike had said, a little bing, little this. If I know that that little thing's not going to kill me, I will just learn to live with it. And that's acceptance. I will accept it. I'll try to figure out ways to get comfortable, but you got to first do all the tests to make sure I'm not going to like die from it. And once you tell me that, then you just accept it. And after 7 years of my dissection and now watching 2 aneurysms, I think I'm in a much better place of just, this is the genetics I was born with, and there's nothing I can do. I can only take my meds and follow the doctor's orders, and that's it, and enjoy my life while I'm doing it. Am I happy about this? This is not a club I wanted to be part of. This was not my plans of my life. This is not what I was going to be doing with my career. But you know what? If I was going to be part of any organization, if this is what I had to do, I am happy to know all of you and everyone else that I've had a chance to interact with in the community. And again, it comes down to four words. No, 5 words. It is what it is. And that's it.
I think one of the things that really helped me is to understand that, like, once you get to the acceptance, that doesn't mean you're fine. Yay, you're over the hill. Like, you go back to the bargaining once in a while. You go back to the anger once in a while. But I think you move through them faster because you develop some skills to move yourself through. So it's kind of like that book of Who Moved My Cheese. Once you figure out how something's supposed to work, all of a sudden you get hit with something new, some new information, a new doctor, a new technique, a new procedure, and you're like, wait, and you go through it again. I think the other thing I want to say before we finish this is it's extremely important to understand that our caregivers go through this also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. They go through all of them multiple times too,
yes,
like us.
With us.
Yeah, but I will tell you, while I say I am okay where I am, if my next scan, when the day comes that my scan says you're now at 5, you bet we'll be on here and I'll be like, no, I don't want to be at 5. I'm so angry I'm at 5. What can I do to not have to have surgery? I'm going to go through all those so fast, but you know what I now know is anything that's non-emergent is a much better situation. So I will have to take that information and use that plus what Martha was saying, which is what I do often late at night when the demons come out. I say, you know what? As long as I'm not aware of my demise, if it happens, then I'm okay. Just give me some good propofol. If it happens, it happens. I won't know the difference. So nothing, I can just give me good drugs. That's my negotiating. I give you my body, you give me good drugs. Where are you guys in acceptance?
Oh my goodness, I really enjoyed what you just said. I think that it helps if the people around you are kind of on the same page, that they accept that where you are. It's difficult if their expectations are different and that they don't jive. And there are days when part of acceptance is saying, this is a day where I'm not going to get very far from the couch. This is just where I need to be right now because my body is telling me it cannot do anything. It's just shutting down and I cannot ask it to do what's not possible. So that to me has been kind of a way of seeing that I have accepted something in all of this, and that idea of all of these stages kind of cycling and going back to the anger and the denial, and it's not just a fixed state, and accepting that as well, that I'm not going to be staying in acceptance and everything is just a plateau and fine. But yeah.
Totally hear you. Mike?
You know, a lot for me, it has really helped. My healthcare provider, Essentia, has used me to tell stories about getting people to see their general practitioner. I've been on billboards. Here's their heart and vascular release. You can see that's my wife and me on there. And you look inside and there I am kayaking on Lake Superior. So I've been able to tell my story in so many different venues, both the Survivor Series for Aortic Hope and Rock from the Heart. I've been in television commercials. So I've come to acceptance through telling my story and trying to influence other people to get their checkups and to live their life in a way that will provide minimal risk for getting heart and vascular issues. So I've come to acceptance through trying to help others with their issues.
That's so wonderful.
I would just like to jump in and say that being part of this group has been very significant in helping that acceptance, in hearing other people's stories, and knowing that other people are dealing with this in some manifestation or other. So thank you.
You're so welcome. That was always the goal, is just, and it was a selfish goal of mine as well as the other founders, was that that I would be able to get to a place where if I met other people and heard from other people, I would realize that this isn't so isolating and alone. And maybe I would move more and I would share more and I would live more. And that's what ended up happening. So really, the only reason we do this is because helping all of you helps us. So it's purely selfish.
Well, you're welcome.
And if you guys want to see what Lake Superior looks like in the winter, hopefully can you see that?
Wow, yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
The ice is slowly melting. So yeah, we downsized our house. We had a big house and we downsized to, again, enjoy our lives, because every minute is important when you have these health issues, because, you know, I might live to be 100. I tell people, or I might die in 5 minutes. So we're just trying to enjoy our lives and not worry so much about material things, about politics and other things. Just we're focused on enjoying every minute and taking every day like it's our last.
Beautiful. Well, we're going to be wrapping up the rest of this week because Friday was the start of Passover and Good Friday. And I think I've heard everything from Happy Eastover. I don't know the last time I knew both of them to come at the same time, but we know we posted a little something to wish everybody a happy holiday. And I hope all of you had a lovely Easter or Passover, whoever's watching, and how you celebrate. I just know that I ate a lot of matzah, and it was tough on my tummy, boy. Whoo, tough on my stomach. Only to turn around and eat a lot of Easter chocolate, which was not kosher for Passover. So I did it all. Also, Feel Good Friday. Look at all of this. Isn't this awesome? We have our Got Hope logo, our Aortic Keep Fighting, our Aortic Strong, our iconic logo without the words, which is just picking up steam as far as orders, our regular well-known logo. We also had a lot of requests for the support logo that we created, which kind of looks like clasping hands. So lots of great items at our shop, and Mother's Day is right around the corner. So we have some new offerings, which I just mentioned, at our Hope Shop at Teespring, which if you go to our website, you click underneath of Hope Shop's second item down, gives you a link right to our website. But these are really a great way, again, I can't stress it enough, to start a conversation about aortic disease. I promise you, you wear something that has the logo on it, someone's going to ask you, what is this logo? What does this mean? And coming off of our very successful fundraiser, I just wanted to let everybody know, while you have time, because right now I think items ordered about in the next day or so will probably be out around the first week of May. It's a perfect time to grab something for Mother's Day or get yourself something. There's a lot more than just shirts. There's hats. Well, nope. There's mugs and tumblers and tote bags and socks. I think we even did socks recently, and masks. There's a world of stuff on there. So you should go check it out if you get a chance.
And I just sent you a photo, Karen, on my last day in therapy with my Aortic Hope sweatshirt on, and I did have people ask me, "What is Aortic Hope?"
See,
Let me tell you,
you.
I wore that in front of my last day after 4 months of inpatient.
That's
therapy.
one. Well, we're going to have to definitely grab that and post that for sure.
I just sent it to you. So
wonderful. On Saturday, talk about pump head. So Velda McKenzie had given us a written blog, her written story back in 2021, like May of 2021. And when I got this wonderful video that she recorded, and I have to tell you, like, just sitting here, I was like, this sounds so familiar. And I could not figure it out. And then I realized, yep, she had told her story before. But I promise you, even if you've read it, just listening to her story, she's just got a way of telling her story that has a nice comedic value to it. And it's one of those stories that was, I mean, golden standard of care. Somebody recognized it. She's in the hospital. They saw it. They got the CAT scan. Pretty relatively cut and dry, but it's her way that she tells the story. And every now and then we could use a little comedic relief. And for those of you that are watching, if you've not yet participated in our Survivor series, please, there's a link that's on our website. Click the link, give us a message, info@aortichope.org. We'd love to tell your story, because as you've heard here, hearing from other people, it's validating, it's impactful, and most importantly, I think it can create an opportunity for you to hear something and want to ask questions of your own physician. So you might learn other techniques, other medications people are taking, diets they're on, whatever it is. If anything, it should make you feel really good about yourself and your own story, that there's somebody out there that's surviving and thriving. So that was our Saturday. And then, of course, on Sunday, we had the holiday. And I hope you all enjoyed your holidays. I got a lot of recovering to do from the holiday weekend this week. Mike's going to have to not shovel, but he better not shovel.
And most of it's melting. It's actually warming up pretty quickly. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. Hey, Martha, thank you so much for joining us. We always love seeing your beautiful smiley face. And Mike, it was such a pleasure to have you for your first time with us. Hope we can see you back again.
Hopefully I'll get another Monday off within the next 6 months.
Hey, next federal holiday, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yep, I'll be there. So what are we? Yep. Memorial Day. We should see you then.
Yeah, actually, thanks for pointing that out. I'll be there.
Okay, so in about a month and 5 weeks or so. And Tammy, it's always great to see your smiling face too. Thank you all so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. These are really important. It really helps others find us and start receiving some support today. So thanks so much, everybody. And
thank you,
care.
Karen.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.